Good evening, folks. Welcome to another Sunday night with Kazaki Flyer 66. And we hope you'll enjoy our little program for tonight. This is kind of just a little shorter one. This should be, if everything goes right, it should only take about an hour and a half. If things don't go right, it could be a little bit longer. Well, as you can see from our screen here, tonight we're in an old standby. Outside, they're finishing filling us up with fuel. And as soon as they do that, they'll take down the tie downs and pull the chocks and get the ladders out of the way. But in the meantime, we'll see if we can crank this puppy up. She's a bit fussy sometimes, and I haven't flown her since the latest update. There's no telling what's been broken. But I'm going to give it a try. It's all about entertainment. And if I'm entertained, it's half the battle. I'm such a twisted puppy that I like this kind of thing. So let's get ourselves in our seat here and roll our chair closer to the pedals. Oh, let's see what we need. We've already turned our magnetos on. Let's see. Let's find the battery. There's the master, avionics, power unit, generators, beacons, nav lights, strobes, pitot heat, okay. Now let's see if we got this right. Okay, we want to prime. And she's turning over. Introduce a little fuel here. Oh, that didn't work. Let's see, turn our primer off. Start motor off. Let's try this again. There's boost. Left-hander. And prime. And no start. Well, we'll just do it the fun way. Because it's all about us flying and not spending 3 million hours on procedures here. I don't know what works and what doesn't. There we go. Got our lights on. All lights on. Yes, lights are on. I see our beacon. Now let's see if we can turn this puppy around. She's a big thing. Okay, brakes release. Oh, by the way, I am at Alpha Golf Hotel, enjoying the beauty of the South Seas. Luckily, we've gotten our shots. We'll go up here to the turnaround and see if we can't make the circle. A little bit of power on the outside engine. Keep tapping your brakes. And there we are. We're lined up pretty well. Okay, lock our brakes for a second. We've got our flight plan in. Takes us where we want to go tonight. We're going to go while we've got the time. Change our V-lock to GPS. Okay. Well, we're watching our manifold pressure. And our RPMs here. Okay, let's give her some fuel and see what we've got. Brakes released, and here we go. Winds are out of the due east at 3 knots. Okay, give us 40 inches. $60, 70 knots. Okay, she'll fly. And up we go. Start retracting that gear. As we head out over the bay. Okay, can we start pulling our manifold pressure back in? and our RPMs down. We want about 20 on the RPM Indian, 2,000. We're going to cruise up here to Alligator Creek. Now, right there is Alligator Creek. You got to watch that manifold pressure and RPM or you'll lose control of it. Okay. Autopilot. Nav. This is high enough. And engage our altimeter, our altitude hold. And here we go. Getting on course. And hope this works. Now there she seems to have got it. And our RPMs are actually matched. How nice. Now what few people seem to realize is that during the struggle for this island 80 years ago, it was an ad hoc invasion. It wasn't practiced or planned. It was practiced one time. That was a total failure. And then a month later, they did it for real. Luckily, there wasn't much opposition. That changed later. But what most people don't realize is more U.S. Navy sailors lost their lives here off this island of Guadalcanal than all the Marines and Army personnel put together. So we're going to take a little tour of all the sites of some of the night actions and losses and victories of the U.S. Navy in this area. This stretch of water became famously known as Iornbottom Sound because of all the wrecked iron that is to be found littering the seafloor here. There she goes, making her turn. Okay, the islands across the way is the Tulagi and Florida. There's Colonel Fork ahead of us, doing a little scouting around. Okay, and we're going to head up to a little place called Cape Esperance, which is one of the few times the U.S. Navy actually won a victory here. And even that wasn't as great a victory as it could have been. this is such a lovely part of the world now, and a lot of this place makes a lot of money from tourism, where Americans get curious and other people get curious to come down here and see what this is all about. And the tourists do not have to put up with the malaria and the dengue fever and the other jungle fevers. So it's a big benefit. Nor are the people who come here going to be starving to death. Living out of cartons of rations that arrived in crates of sea rations. Now let's see if I can call this up. Look at my map here. Yeah, we're headed for Cape Esperance, 30 miles away. And then we'll head up towards Savo Island, where several of the U.S. Navy's most inglorious moments took place. It would really be nice if this part of the world got some attention like New Zealand got yesterday. I think 90% of flight simmers were flying in New Zealand yesterday. One, it's a great place to fly, and two, the scenery got some nice updates. And Colonel Fork is flying an aircraft that is not unheard of to be seen in the areas and waters around here. A P-40 Warhawk would have been based where we just took off over at AGGH Henderson Field. It's now called Panira. This is the capital of the Malaysian the island state that this belongs to. A lot of the buildup that the U.S. Marines did while they were here turned into a permanent attraction for the native peoples. Now that wasn't there before. We'll slow our manifold pressure down to about 25 inches. We don't want to burn them up. This is summertime down here, so we'll open up our cow flaps too. You can just see how rugged this island actually is. There's pretty good sized mountains over there. And to think that our opponents, they hiked on a little bitty trail, not much wider than a person is. They marched from where we're going all the way to where we took off, and they carried howitzers, munition, and food all the way through all of that, which is just incredible. Let's see if I've got something to mark it on the map. Nope. Just the waypoint, and it says it's 14 miles off. Okay. Well, that's better than nothing. That sunlight is flickering through the prop. The props pretty. That'll cause a seizure. Let's see if we can change the time and change that. Try that time. It's a little bit better. Okay, we're at 1,300 feet, doing approximately 140 knots. 129 to be exact. And don't expect a lot of VOR navigation down here. There aren't very many to use. There's one back where we took off at Henderson, but that's about it. And the TCAS for today's flight is the Mark 1 Highball. So if you can see them, they're close. If you can't see them, they're still over there. There goes Colonel Fork. We can see him. So he's approximately less than a mile. Oop, hiccup. There it went. And of course we lost. There he is. Colonel Fork is he's such a nice guy. He's always welcome to fly with us. And he's a really good pilot. He's been going through some virtual courses with one of the schools to teach him to be a better pilot. And hopefully he'll get back to streaming soon. If I could figure out how to do the shout-outs, I'd sure do it. But yeah, Colonel Fork 85 can be found here on Twitch. So if you would care to go visit his site, give him a follow, and so you'll get notified when he's on the air. Okay, 7 miles out from Cape Esperance. This is the final stop of the infamous Tokyo Express. Give him a little wing wag. And that's the problem when you've got way more horsepower than the person you're flying along with. And the only advantage to this aircraft that I picked today is if things get ugly and bad, a water landing is preferable to the landing on the beach. Because odds are pretty good the beach isn't going to be wide enough. These are big wings. Well, Colonel Fork, we really appreciate you checking forward of us and being an advanced party. Letting us know if there's anything out there on the water. Because not only were these PBYs patrol aircraft, but under the cover of darkness, the U.S. Navy would paint them black, and they would take off and fly out, do their thing. They had an onboard surface search radar, which allowed them to make strikes on targets in the water, and they would carry torpedoes. And in the Atlantic, on the other side of the world, they would carry depth charges for work against German submarines. This is the aircraft that, after having slipped the Royal Navy for 4 days, found the mighty Bismarck and helped the Royal Navy zero in and close in on her and end her reign of terror across the Atlantic. Okay, you can see the spots right through there is where the Imperial Japanese Navy destroyers would pull in and roll their cargoes off to be picked up by their troops. Now we're turning out toward Savo Island, which is up here. And the thing about Savo Island is if you're coming down from the northwest, down what they call the slot, which is the channel of water between a series of islands to the north side and a series of islands to the south. Savo Island is like a shower plug right in the middle. And you either have to go north or you have to go south. And a lot of the times, the Imperial Japanese Navy would come in from the north between this island and Florida Island. And they would usually, if there was a U.S. Navy presence, they would run into them right about here. If there was no Navy presence, they would steam all the way down to Henderson and try to inflict shell fire damage upon that site of those Marines. But here at Savo, this is where several of the Battle of Savo Island, which occurred 3 nights after the Marines invaded. That was one of the greatest defeats in U.S. Navy history. Several thousand men lost their lives here, and several United States Navy cruisers and destroyers were sunk right near here. Not because our seamen weren't brave, they were, but the leadership was inexperienced. It wasn't familiar with what to do to face the changed situation. And we Americans at the time were not good at night fighting. Okay, let's see if we're going to fly across this island or not. We're not supposed to anyway. Not far from where we're at is where one of the three or four occasions, and it depends on whether you want to classify her as a battleship or a battle cruiser. The U.S. Navy's battleship USS Washington, along with the U.S. Navy's battleship South Dakota, steamed up this passage in the dark and intercepted a force containing the Imperial Japanese Navy battlecruiser Kirishima. And they closed to about 8,000 yards, which is very close for battleships. And then they opened fire on each other. The Kirishima was hit approximately 22 times in less than 15 minutes. She caught fire, burned, and was scuttled the next day. Which is one of the few times battleships have ever in World War II ever fought against each other. One of the gentlemen in command of the USS Washington that night was Admiral Willis Lee. And until Mark Spitz broke his record, Willis Lee was the holder of more American medals in the Olympics than any other American. His Olympic sport was sharpshooting. So of course his battleship would be very good at shooting. Which was odd because the man wore Coke bottle thick glasses, kind of like mine, and was pretty well practically blind without them on. But I always got tickled that this man was such a, during the 20s and 30s, he was such a grand member of the team, that Olympic team, that he kept adding to his medals constantly. Okay, where are we going next? We're headed up here to where the actual scene of where the giants were walking took place. Doesn't take long for Guadalcanal to disappear into the distance. Although if you've ever seen the show The Pacific, there's a scene where Robert Blakey is recalling that he could see several of the night battles from his vantage point on the island. I'm just tickled that so far tonight, fingers crossed, I haven't heard the disconnect sound for my throttle, which has me tickled pink. I'm sure something will set it off. Did I put in the flight plan a trip to Tulagi? No, we don't quite go to Tulagi, but fairly close. It's close enough to see Tulagi off our right wing our left wing fairly close. Look at the moon. See if we can turn around and get a better look at it. Well, she's not as big in this view as this view. Now, if this flight ends fairly quickly, we may pop over to Pensacola and look at some of the beachfront properties up to Fort Morgan, Alabama. I was up there earlier today checking that out in my T6 Texan. It's a spot where I used to take my vacations a lot. Call it the Redneck Riviera. Doesn't take much for the skies to get empty. Now we'll just watch Stitch up here. When he starts to shake it, we'll know the airplane is shaking a bit too much. He's our oscillation indicator. Okay, we're pointed right at Tulagi. Tulagi and Florida and the other northern parts of the islands known as the Santa Cruz Islands. Okay, we're starting to head back towards home for the afternoon. Head back toward Henderson, Anara. Which instead of landing in the in the water and crawling up onto the beach, we'll just land at the runway. If they had more access, if there wasn't so much jungle right down to the beach, we'd give her a shot at landing in the water. For long distance flying, I really do like the PBY. She's slow, but she will get you there. She's a little bit faster than a Cessna, but not much. Like the 182 will definitely outrun the poor old girl. But she's a great platform to let your tourists look out the windows, see the islands. Okay, it's about 19 miles to our next waypoint. And then we'll be turning in and headed toward the beach. Just keep your eyes peeled. We're in a vulnerable part of the ocean. I've seen several documentaries about the waters in this area. It's fairly deep. These aren't coastal areas. When you get away from the islands, it drops away fairly quickly into the deep parts of the ocean. But believe it or not, one of the navies deemed it too shallow for their battleships. So they were never brought in here. They could have made a huge difference. I, for one, am glad that they never came here. Okay, there to our north, we can see Florida and Tulagi. Which, it started out as a seaplane base and then became it became a regional headquarters area and a area of bureaucratic center. And then they decided that across the bay here on Guadalcanal, there was a nice flat area that would be suitable to build an airfield. And if they did their homework right, they would be able to base approximately 150 aircraft here if they had been able to finish it. Okay, let's see where we're at. We're 11 miles from our turn. And we just want to just keep our steady going. We'll descend at about, when we get to about 10 or 12 miles. We're not very high. And there's the thunderstorms that are building up over the island. With mountains like these, it's no wonder that the moisture would loft high enough to chill and start to fall as rain. Under 23 knots, nice. Just nice and steady. Not even any really need to break into the Tunes vault tonight. Except maybe later if we fly down around Fort Walton or Fort Morgan. Vacationed at Fort Walton too, which is right next to Elgin Field, where the carriers practiced for the Doolittle raid. Eglin is currently the home of the U.S. Air Force Special Services Command. And they operate Hercules C-130s out of that airport. I took several pictures of one doing approaches there from my hotel room a few years ago. Little bitty spot of land out there. Reefs and other things. I would not want to beach my ship on that. If it's anything like the other little surface features on this part of the ocean, it's probably coral. Those will tear out the bottoms of even a battleship. And that little island is our turning point. If I were marooned there, I'm so close to the bigger islands, I'd be tempted to swim to the bigger islands. Okay, coming up on our turn. Should start to make our turn here anytime. And look at those little reefs. Whether they could be 5 feet down or 50 feet. The water's so clear. Okay, we're lining up for our final approach back to Henderson. It's 15 miles away. I can see the rotating beacon from the airport. See the green and white flashing up ahead? That's where we're going. Okay, we'll try to take manual control here. Cut our throttles back so we can start to descend a little bit. Nothing extravagant, just a slow descent. You can see the runway from here, but unfortunately there's a line of trees between us and the end of the concrete. Okay, we're doing a pretty good job of holding our course here. We're 10 miles out, coming down to 1,000 feet. Nice. Pull us up a little bit, start to bleed off that energy, which means we'll start slowing down. Down to 120 knots. Try to keep our engines balanced as we come down. And watch instruments. Okay, 700's a bit low. We'll try to hold that. Keep the runway centered in our window here. Gear coming down. There'll be one less thing we have to worry about. Because we are a 5A. That means we're an amphibian. We can land on the land or land in the water. Okay, we're getting low. Bring our power back in a little bit. 200 feet, trying to climb back up a little bit. We don't want to hit the water with our gear down. See if we can't get on the glide path here. You can see the trees that are at this end of the runway. They should be cut back. Okay, 400 feet, cutting back power. $500 feet per minute down. Okay, just follow the glide slope in. Stay clear of the trees. Cut your throttles and let her float. Now pull up. Flare. And there we're down. Brakes as necessary. We're coming up on our turn here. And we'll taxi up to the terminal. Which is the third exit. Okay, this will take us up to the terminal. A giant modern building in the middle of an island setting. Okay, we want to make our turn up here, make it easier for our people to get in and out. Okay, here we are. All stop. Set our parking brake. And cut our engines. Then we want to shut our generators off and turn our battery off. Okay, that's an hour's worth right there. Sorry it was such a short trip there. We'll make it up on the Florida coast here. Just give me a few minutes to, let's see, let's set this up. Escape, main menu, continue. Let's face it, it was a lot easier to change where you were in FSX and FS9. Okay, we're going to change our aircraft here. Something more suitable to sightseeing. No, not the helicopter. Oh, I haven't flown that in a while. We'll take the 195. Nice airplane. Now let's go to the other side of the planet. Let's zoom in here. Now we landed and took off from here earlier. I think I can do it again. They call it the Dauphin Island Airport when it's not on Dauphin Island. Well, we don't have parking spaces here, so we'll just take runway 08. Once we get in here, we'll have to change the date and time. Always takes a couple of minutes for everything to load. I haven't looked at the radar around here. If you say we're ready to fly, we'll trust you. Yep, this is the spot. There behind us is the port. And the dredger is moving around in the harbor. We'll go take a look at him. Scoot my foot closer. Okay, I want landing lights, nav lights, all right, let's set the parking brake off. Let's see if we can take her off here. Okay, we did. This airport is just a dirt strip here at Fort Morgan. It used to be an auxiliary field for the U.S. Navy to practice their landings at. It was built during World War II as a practice field. here's our fort. It was steaming past this fort in 1863 or 2 that the phrase "damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead" came from. Of course, back then they were referring to ocean mines, not motorized torpedoes. Looks like a mobile drilling rig. There's even a helipad, it looks like. I'm not that brave. Okay, it's a floating dry dock of some sort. Gets where it's going and they submerge out from under it. Nice. Judging by the sun, it's morning time. I didn't think that little runway was long enough, but I put a Texan in there earlier today. So it's a goodly long enough little runway. Okay, let's fly up towards Panama or Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. And then we'll head on down toward Pensacola. So we can get a little trim set up here. So we're not fighting it constantly. They said these rentals are kind of nice out here on this end of the island of the peninsula, but I never did rent out here. We always stayed in the condos. Get our RPMs right. Get our mixture right about there. Good. I love this section of the Florida coast. It's a lot of sand, but it's beautiful beaches here. If you ever get a chance to come down here and take a vacation, it's worth it. It's not as expensive as, say, Panama City or some of the other places in Florida. But this is a nice spot. You have a really nice vacation here for under $1,000 for a week. And eat pretty good too. I'm not sure if I'd want to come down to the seafood coast in my current condition. Don't take me to places where I can't have what's on the menu. But yeah, there is a road that comes. It starts up here on the uh, on the parkway between Interstate 10 and Gulf Shores, and the road takes you all the way out to Fort Morgan. Lots of places down here by the dunes. Lots of sea turtles here come ashore about this time of year to lay their eggs, and about a month later they'll hatch out, head for the sea. One thing that the park rangers ask is that if you do come upon a sea turtle nest that's hatching, don't interfere. Just let nature take its course. They'll either make it or they won't. They're pretty well programmed to head for the ocean. Every now and then a couple of them go the other way. We've even had a fox in our parking garage. Right here on the beach. I know what I forgot to do, because I changed airplanes. And there went the throttles. Not good. So, let's turn that down. Now I know why. Now I know what was wrong. I forgot to turn that down earlier. I'm surprised he wasn't giving me a lot of feedback. Okay, well, you know the drill by now. Now she's going to hold her course here. See if I can get this turned around. Okay, we'll take the camera off. Correct the plane. A little bit of up angle, please. Trim it that way. I love airplanes with no autopilots. Okay, we're right there over Gulf Shores. Okay, let's see if that worked. Yes, we have our throttle back for a moment. Oh boy. We'll fly right past the Gulf Shores Pier down here. Gulf Shores State Park Beach is right here. There's a big rappel slide right off the inland here. Little rope, a zip line. Hey, it's not actually that far between here and Pensacola. Bit more trim up, please. That's hopefully will cooperate. This is what is known as the Coastal Highway. And you can go quite a long ways. We used to take this between our condo and the aircraft museum at Pensacola. Okay, we're coming up on the Orange Beach inlet, where some friends of mine went parasailing, and it's also close to the spot where we went. Now, it's a little bit off of our left wing over there, but this is where we went on a dolphin sightseeing tour inland in that area right there. In that bay area. I thought for sure I'd get seasick when we went out to do the paragliding, but turns out my stomach was steady as a rock. I shot it on an old camcorder again for my gave it to my friend and her uncle, or my uncle, her dad, my uncle. Gotta love extended families. They're the ones you choose. I can already see the Pensacola Naval Air Station lights. We're under 1,000 feet. We'll land at the museum. We're not in a naval aircraft, except might have been used as a liaison aircraft. Otherwise, it's just hey, y'all, let's go see where the Blue Angels fly. On my YouTube page, I put up a 20-minute video of a full practice by the Blue Angels. I caught by accident. I'd just come to the museum because, well, I was down visiting a friend down here in Milton and had driven over to the museum. And goodness gracious, the Blue Angels were doing a practice. I got there at the parking lot, it was totally packed. The other times we'd been here, there was nobody there, hardly. But on that particular Tuesday, the parking lots were full. Okay, we're coming up to Pensacola Harbor. Let's see, I want to descend a little bit. We've climbed to 1,500 feet here. Okay, we're getting ready. Tomorrow on Two-Tone Murphy's stream, we're going to start practicing and learning how to do proper ATC procedures. So right now I'd be tuning in the Pensacola ATIS and listening to that. And then from there, I would contact their tower, let them know that we are on approach. Since we're landing at Pensacola, we don't need to ask for permission to transit their airspace. But if we were just passing through on our way to Navarre or on to Elgin at Fort Walton Beach, we'd ask for permission to transit their Class B airspace. Okay, right down here off our left wing is there's a lighthouse, pretty good sized lighthouse. Okay, the runway or the road is called Blue Angels Highway. Let's take a closer look. We've got permission to transit. Okay, there I can see the highway right off my left wingtip. There it goes. This is Blue Angels Highway. Now see, the Navy is smart. They cut their trees back. Especially considering they teach naval cadets to fly here and practice their aircraft carrier landings. Speaking of aircraft carriers. Okay, we're coming up on the museum. There's the museum complex and a lot of the aircraft at the museum that are out in the back parking lot. Not quite on display inside, but worthy of keeping up and keeping. Okay, this is Pensacola proper over here. Photogrammetry isn't that great. It's there. It's about all we can say for it. Okay, we'll go over here by the bridge. Connects Pensacola to Navarre Island. I don't know what the actual island is. It's part of the inland waterway. A little slow there. Of course, we're climbing. See some sailboats on the bay here. The approach to this bridge is interesting. Okay, if you follow that road north, it'll take you to Interstate 10. But if you follow this curve around, it'll put you on the bridge. And when I was here, they had the left-hand side under construction here. Good old flight simulator discontinues the bridge halfway across. Trust me, it's still there. If you're a paranoid like me, it's a unfun drive across. Not as bad as crossing the Blackwater Bridge up north of here, but it's still a pretty scary crossing. Ooh, thank you. I crossed through this part of Navarre right at school hour. Lots of people picking up their kids and lots of school buses. Okay, you can go across this bridge here to the outer islands, or you can stay on the road, head up the coast. We'll head up toward Elgin. This is a good time of day to be seeing this country. Just enough shadow to let you know that it's got some depth. See the carriers out there off of Pensacola. A lot of the Pensacola beach area. Okay, something's beeping at us. It's our airspeed. Well, we're not going too fast. We got plenty of fuel. My luck, the batteries are running out. Nope, batteries aren't flickering. Okay, see if we can find the Walmart down here. I tried to, this was back during the 2017 paranoia days. And when I tried to go onto the base to go to the museum at Elgin, they wouldn't let me on without a military ID. I wasn't in the service long enough to get an ID. So that was one museum I just didn't get to go to. I found out there was a couple other museums that I totally missed just because I just didn't go there or didn't look hard enough. Got our landing lights out down so the other people can see us. No reason for us to be climbing like that. A pretty good sized radio tower there. Earlier today, when I was playing around down here earlier today, there were a lot of military aircraft down in this part of on this coast. And not old craft. F-16s, F-18s, F-22s. A couple of Tomcats thrown in there. Okay, we've passed Blackwater area. North of here is Milton, which is the actual training center for the cadets. They weren't exactly assigned to Pensacola. They were assigned to Whiting, a Naval Air Station Whiting, north and south. It was two airfields almost touching, and that's where the actual Stearmans were based out of. All these fields around here were places where the emergency landings and just places to fly to and from for the cadets. Okay, over on our right is Navarre Beach. That road right there leads north to Interstate 10. And back then, when I was down here, this was the only way to get to Fort Walton. Had to come down that highway and then get on this one to get to Fort Walton. There's a Walmart. coming home from the Fort Walton vacation down here, it only took me 8 hours to make the drive from Fort Walton to the house. And that's with several stops for leg stretching stops and food stops along the way. The car got such good gas mileage, I think I could have done it on one tank, but I stopped twice to top off. Okay, I can see Elgin up ahead. Which is right up the coast from Fort Walton. We'll try to scoot in here with all the C-130s at Elgin, and then we'll call it a night. Let's get us a little bit of wing room here. There was lots of boat traffic on this little inland waterway here. The Air Force uses this area for it reserved it for a range for practice of some sort, and a lot of it is undeveloped. Okay, there's our airport right there. We get up here, we'll make a turn in, start cutting our throttle back. Our gear is already down. Landing lights check. At this point, we make our call out to Elgin Tower that NKR 54 is on final. And of course, we're going to give the runway. It's 18. Cut the throttle. Oh, 3.6. Coming in a little hot here. See if we can bleed off some speed before we land. Nice gentle touch. A couple of bounces. There goes the stall warning. And now it sounds when we're on the ground. Brakes, please. Okay, we'll taxi back to the Air Force ramp here. I know the Air Force, they're going to have a taxiway down here. Just going to have to go down to it. nice roomy aircraft, the 195. Lots of room for passengers and cargo or luggage. There's our taxiway. Okay, we'll kick our rudder over. That's a big taxiway. Of course, they're used to aircraft much larger than we are. Follow the Smurfs all the way back to the parking area. That's just a little trip down one of my favorite stretches of the Florida coast. It's also a bit of the Alabama coast. We didn't go far enough west to be into Mississippi, but we almost went there. We'd have kept going at Fort Morgan, we would have been in Mississippi. I get the feeling there should be something big over there that's just not included with the scenery. Don't want to go too fast. Don't want to take off again. It's a long way back to the terminal. It's a long runway. We bounced a lot. Wonder what LRM is going to lie to us about today. It says a minus 100. Yeah, we may have been a touch at minus 100, but I don't think we landed. I think we landed harder than that on the bounce. We're almost back into civilization here. That's our barometric pressure. Get our altitude right. There's their fuel and beacon. Actually have a truck. So if you get out here and need gas, they'll bring you a truck. See why there's such a large amount of ramp space here, considering they park C-130s around here. getting a nice one here in the sim is going to be nice. Someone besides that really bad one that Captain Scam put in. Going to give somebody an aircraft, put a cockpit in it. Especially if you're going to charge that much. There's no telling which one of these buildings is going to be general aviation ops. We'll just park in front of the tower. Ronald, stop. Start tapping our brake. Get off the main road here. There we go, there's a nice spot. And there we are. Let's cut our engines. Get back in the cockpit. Turn everything on. No. Oh. Okay, this aircraft is shut down. Roll the window down. But we can't open the door. There we go. Well, I, for one, would like to thank everybody that came along on our little journey tonight. And I hope I can come up with something interesting for next Sunday. So, everybody enjoy what's left of the month of February. And I hope we have a great March. And hopefully the winds won't get so high that they blow us away. Good night, everybody. And clear skies. I'm not even going to bother to raid tonight. Just go see Scruffy.